On this New Member Sunday, I acknowledge that many of us are here at All Souls, both longtime members and newcomers alike, because our voyage in life didn't turn out as we had planned. We had the courage to leave the safety of our life's established shoreline and sail out onto the high seas. Maybe the waves crashed over our sloop and broke it open. Maybe the coast on which we eventually landed proved rougher than the coast we'd been steering for, less settled, less civil. For many of us, All Souls, it's a place where we explore how to close the gap between where we've landed in life and where we want to be and who we want to become. Here we find the courage and confidence to begin the next phase of the journey. In his recent essay in the New York Times titled "Narrative and the Grace of God," Stanley Fish muses about the nature of heroism and virtue and the relationship between them in the two film versions of True Grit. In the first version, for which John Wayne inexplicably received an Oscar for Best Actor, the heroes possess virtue and the villains don't. In the remake, Fish says, there's no relationship between heroism and virtue. Heroism of a physical kind is displayed by almost everyone, good and bad alike. And the universe seems at best indifferent and at worst hostile to its exercise. Fish adds, there are no easy homiletics here, no direct line drawing from the way things seem to have turned out to the way they ultimately are. Does this mean that there are no heroes in the remake of True Grit? Not at all, Fish insists. Maddie turns out to be a hero not because she's the instrument of a just and vengeful God, but because she maintains the confidence of her convictions even when the world continues to provide no support for them. She goes forward because she has faith in the righteousness of her path, a path that is sure despite the absence of external guideposts. But from where does Maddie's courage come? Her faith in the righteousness of her path? What is the source of the confidence she has in her convictions? What enables her to leave home in the dead of winter and venture forth with noble purpose? Near the end of the Coen brothers' remake of True Grit, Maddie avenges her father's death, but in so doing endures a series of unfortunate events that results in her being bitten by a rattlesnake. Rooster Cogburn, whose loyalty to Maddie and her cause has ebbed and flowed throughout the movie, scoops her up, heaves her onto the back of a horse, and then swings up behind her. I must get you to a doctor, sis, he says, or you are not going to make it. Rooster rides like the wind throughout the day and into the bitterly cold night. As snow begins to fall onto the wind-whipped landscape, their horse founders. Rooster pulls Maddie clear as the horse sinks to the ground, and then he reaches down to pick her up. Put your arms around my neck, he says. I will carry you. And so he does. Mile after tortuous mile. As the credits begin to roll at the end of the movie, we hear an old hymn being sung. The tune has provided a musical through line since the very opening scene. The hymn is titled, "Leaning on the Everlasting Arms." I know it well. We sang it often in church and at family gatherings when I was a boy growing up Mennonite. The words of the hymn go like this: "Oh, how sweet to walk in this pilgrim way, leaning on the everlasting arms. Oh, how bright the path grows from day to day, leaning on the everlasting arms. What have I to dread? What have I to fear? Leaning on the everlasting arms." What are the everlasting arms? In the version I used to sing, a descant was added to the original words. Leaning on Jesus, leaning on Jesus, leaning on the everlasting arms. Though the John Wayne version of the movie didn't use this hymn, it embraced the underlying theology. On this reading, righteous people serve as pawns of a just and vengeful God, while superficially Christian in its language and symbolism. The first movie wasn't deeply religious at all. The Coen brothers' version of the movie, on the other hand, strips away most of the Christian language, and in so doing renders the movie profoundly religious. How so? In the modern world, our sense of how the world works doesn't depend on the character and caprice of a supernatural God. The quest for meaning doesn't lead us merely to follow ancient commandments. Rather, it leads us to construct a sense of purpose based on everything we know. This is the religious quest, and it happens within a community of faith. As Matthew Arnold says in his poem, Dover Beach, things we once thought God had created independent of us, joy, love, light, certitude, peace, help for pain, turn out to be up to us. In response to this new reality, Arnold writes, "Ah, love, let us be true to one another." From where does Mattie's confidence come? From where does she get the courage to leave home in the dead of winter and venture forth with noble purpose? From her dad, who was his brother's keeper, and doubtless from her mom, who was her sister's keeper as well. From where does the 10-year-old in the Carl Dennis poem get the courage to unlock her toy trunk and the confidence eventually to venture onto the high seas of life? From the same source, from the people who love her and who validate her sense of agency and highlight her sense of possibility. Faith is a leap of the moral imagination that connects the world as it is to the world as it could become. The everlasting arms that hold faith up are human arms, united within a religious community by a shared sense of purpose and a mutual sense of destiny. When the vicissitudes of life wrest someone you love from you, or the storm waves of life bust up your sloop and land you on a rough coast, or your calling in life leads you into unknown and risky terrain, it's time to lean on the everlasting arms. At its best, A community of faith, like All Souls, comforts us in times of trouble, encourages us in times of fear, and supports us in times of weakness. Put your arms around my neck, we say to each other, and I will carry you. Lean on the everlasting arms. Amen. I love you. May God bless us all.